I'm Olivia Higgins, and you're watching Playing with Fire, where we cover expert analysis on what's hot right now in the investment world. Now, with us today, we have Ben Cooper from Sydney, Australia, and he is the Chief of Product and co-founder of OneCode. Yes?
Yes.
How are you, Ben?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. Now, for today's topic, I'm very excited about it because it's all about startups and a critical analysis of the world of virtual realities. And I think, you're the perfect person for this. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the Chief Product Officer at OneCode. We build the infrastructure for multiplayer online gaming. So we design and operate large telecommunications networks and the server infrastructure that allow these virtual worlds to exist across Asia Pacific.
Wow. Okay. So core question for a new investor, what do you think is hot right now in the startup space?
I think in the startup space, where we're seeing a lot of the heat is around these newer multiplayer experiences being designed. You've got companies who are designing new ways to allow more people to interact in game, which allows these amazing communities to flourish as a result. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of the focus is.
Okay. And I mean, in terms of your experience, what can you tell us about key elements for a startup and people who want to invest in a sustainable portfolio for these companies?
Yeah, I'm no investment advisor, so I'll preface with that. But again, the feedback we get, because we do, as a startup, we do interact a lot with investors. What they're looking for are companies around the gaming. They look for the high growth guys. So the guys who have underlying actual new technology, and then a plan to implement that technology in the real world and to grow big ecosystems around these technologies.
Okay. I know a fun fact about you is that you were a pro esports player, right?
Yes.
I find that amazing. Yeah. So with this startup background and also with the whole hype around Metaverse, what can you tell me about that? Because it's a hot discussion topic at the moment, especially on the moomoo trading apps. So what do you think about this?
I think the metaverse at the moment is undefined. I don't think anyone knows what it is, but the definitions we're seeing coming out of the now renamed Facebook company like Meta and some other game engine companies is very dystopian. It's these walled gardens.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's these walled gardens that don't seem that they sort of take all the worst parts of technology. We've seen, especially during COVID, that people are at home, so they're getting pushed into these worlds where they scroll a social media feed, they buy some stuff online, they order their food on delivery app, they never leave the house, they never go out. Humans are designed to go out and interact with the world. So I hope to see, and then we've got the other side of the coin where companies like Niantic are trying to build a metaverse where they're bringing out the best in humanity rather than the worst. We're seeing, especially in Facebook, are the worst of this, they're algorithmically, putting you in an echo chamber, which causes more extreme views to emerge on the internet, which makes it less good, I will say. So the metaverse, I think, is very much an unwritten path. I don't think anyone, Meta themselves, even know what the metaverse is yet.
Yes. I also noticed that when people were talking about it, they just use it as a buzzword, right? And so for Metaverse, for example, right, we've got several spheres. We've got the social media side, we've got the transaction space. So we've got the NFT marketplace and cryptocurrencies. And then you've got people who are the gamers, who see it as, wow, this is a great chance to be an avatar version of myself and interact with other people. What sort of startups should we look into for this space?
For the metaverse space, startups-wise, I again, not an investment advisor. I don't know. We deal a lot with companies and we purposely hunt them down, right? We make the infrastructure that enables them. I don't know of any startups building metaverses right now that have actually any tech in the field. I see a lot of decks. I see a lot of fancy,
Me
flashy
too.
websites.
Yeah.
A lot of amazing press releases.
So many out there.
I
Boom in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, I think it's just the next buzzword that people will use to try and get funding. We saw it from the 2016 to 2019 phase. When I was working in startups, a lot of people were talking about AI and how AI is going to change the world.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was for a very short period of time, 3D, if anyone remembers that. And before that, it was just even having a web platform, SaaS and cloud.
Yeah.
So I think Metaverse might be the next buzzword that people are using, but I don't think many companies have a handle on what that actually means. The Metaverse technically has existed since 1999. If you cast your minds back to a game called Second Life, that is technically a Metaverse.
I played it.
And that has technically got everything that people are talking about.
Yeah.
You can buy and own property. You can build and own your own avatars. You can build whole casinos. You can do all sorts of stuff.
I had an entire lecture for one of my modules in university on that.
Exactly. So it's a fully functioning Metaverse as is, but people have just forgotten. And I think what companies like Facebook are doing with their major investment into companies like Oculus, into their acquiring them and then pumping more capital into Oculus. I think what Facebook is trying to do is take maybe that Second Life experience into a more VR experience. But as we've seen, even in artistic expressions, like you would have seen Ready Player One, but there was even novels way back in the 80s talking about Metaverse and defining it. It always doesn't look good. Like Ready Player One, if anything, should have been a cautionary warning about what it could become, which is these corporate controlled and fueled things where, most of humanity has given up on life and fallen into technology. And that's not what technology should be about. So I think in terms of startups to look at guys who are trying to do more AR metaverses where they're trying to get you out in the world. Yeah, AR, augmented reality. So companies like Niantic are a great example of that, who are trying to bridge the digital world into the real world versus companies who are trying to pull you out of the world and put you into a digital world.
Run away from the current reality.
Exactly. And we've seen, just to riff on that, we've seen crazy numbers in multiplayer gaming last year where $180 billion was spent in games in revenue. 63 billion of that alone was microtransactions in mobile games. So we've seen these huge shifts of people moving into gaming who traditionally wouldn't have done so. And as such, there's lots of money to be made. So of course, people like Meta are saying, well, we need to get in on that space. But I think especially if you're looking at startups, look at the guys making multiplayer games. That's where all the money is right now. You've got to only look at the biggest growth companies like Tencent with their many IP they own.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So on this point, if we looked at the recent news with the acquisition by Microsoft of Activision-Blizzard, that is still ongoing as a discussion point.
Yes, it is, yeah. So
that's related to what you just mentioned, right?
It is.
And
I think that's also,
thoughts?
I think that is a symptom, again, I'm going off analysis I've read from people way smarter than myself. That is a symptom of the tech stocks now. Tech companies are moving away from, so for many years, tech stocks were safe investments. And tech companies use that to raise capital. Okay. And what we're seeing now is, and this year I think we'll see is a lot of acquisitions and mergers in the multiplayer gaming space and video gaming space because companies will get growth that way. So if you look at Microsoft, they've pulled the first trigger. They're first off the rank. They've gone and acquired or are intending to acquire Activision-Blizzard. That gives them a lot of growth immediately this year now. Their balance book's going to look better. Yes, they're spending a lot of money, but Activision-Blizzard own a lot of big IP. The world's biggest MMO, World of Warcraft, is now owned by Microsoft. Call of Duty, which every man and his dog knows the name of. Like you can talk to your dad and say Call of Duty, he's going to know what it is. Then you've got the Warcraft and StarCraft series as well owned by. You've got Overwatch, which had a big explosion in 2016, 2017. So there's a lot of IP now and a lot of idle IP in that Activision Blizzard group of games that haven't been touched in 20 years that Microsoft can quickly pull out of a bag and release a game for, which would cause immediate growth in revenue. So it's a very smart move by Microsoft to tie that up. Activision Blizzard was in a bit of a hard place. They had a lot of ongoing litigation, a lot of accusations of mistreatment of employees.
Yes. A lot of companies in this space.
And they had a couple bad launches too. So World of Warcraft 3 Reforged, which was just a rebuild of the Warcraft 3 game, was met with very poor reception. And the most recent expansions.
Did you play it?
I didn't even bother buying it. Yeah. And the most recent expansions for World of Warcraft were not received well, and Overwatch has seen dwindling player bases. So maybe Microsoft can take their experience in rebuilding gaming communities, especially you see the very successful launch of Halo Infinite recently, and they can take that experience and help Activision-Blizzard find their groove again.
Okay. So what's next then? Okay. I know this is the gaming space, which is amazing, and I don't think a lot of people expected it to seriously become so successful, especially in Asia Pacific. But I think there's a lot of focus in the news with like Europe, US. But I personally, in my own analysis and research, have seen a lot of traction in Asia Pacific, China as well. Yeah. What can you tell us about that?
Of course, yeah. And our internal research where I work shows that Asia Pacific is likely the biggest gaming region player base wise. Just pure numbers, right? You've got a lot of really high population countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, that are playing, and lots of an emerging middle class in Southeast Asia who now are buying computers and mobile phones and installing their first game and playing it.
To the hardware to play these games.
Well, as these economies,
virtual reality, yes?
Yes and no. Virtual reality, I think, is a bit far off. It's very expensive. The barrier entry is high, but you've got a lot of players in Asia Pacific coming onto mobiles and PC. And that causes a big spike in revenue. And that's maybe what Microsoft is anticipating too with buying Activision-Blizzard, is now they've got more IP to push into this growing market. The Chinese domestic market is huge for gaming. We've only got to see what Tencent make off that gaming market alone. You've got the recent startup developer in Shanghai, MiHoYo, making Genshin Impact, which was the most talked about game of 2021. So that's huge.
It was trending just constantly.
And it's huge player base in Asia. Very popular in a lot of Southeast Asian countries, very popular on mobile. I believe there's console ports coming out as well. So, and that was a startup out of China. That was one of China's first domestically made games that went big outside of China too. What
about Pimax?
So Pimax is a hardware developer. They make VR headsets. They're Chinese. They're based out of Shenzhen. I believe
it's a hot space too.
Yes, yeah. VR hardware is definitely a space that's growing. I think Oculus really scared everyone when they dropped the Quest 2 because it is a very formidable headset and it's very affordable. I believe it's between $299 to $399, and in Black Friday sales it drops lower. So it's a very cheap headset. And Pimax, I think, comparatively are very tech purist in the way they operate. They go for the maximum experience. So Pimax's big draw card is that it's an 8K resolution headset, which no one else has.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But from what I've seen, Pimax does have some supply issues, and they're very slow to roll because they are still, every headset is still released through a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign. So they're still a growing company. But I think,
what about the key players then? Oculus and all the others. Why haven't they jumped onto the bandwagon for such tech or ambitions?
I think we will see come out of China. This is hopefully some companies can start really bringing the barrier to entry down on VR.
I think that is needed for it to transition into a more successful, sustainable space, especially for investors. Because, for example, 3D glasses, right? There was this hype, there was a spike, and then after that,
every TV had 3D at one point.
Exactly.
And then it just disappeared. It just faded out from existence. New TVs now don't come with 3D.
Absolutely. So in terms of a pattern and in terms of evolution of gaming and entertainment in general, wouldn't you say that VR has the most potential in this space?
Oh, definitely. I think
because we're not just talking about entertainment, right? We're talking about lifestyle.
Oh, it's even business too. You've got to see Microsoft have focused all their effort on their AR and VR stuff on military, right? Because that's where the money is right now for them. But it means they're just using the military to pay to upgrade that hardware to a point they can get it to consumer space. Yes. And I think whoever nails getting the barrier to entry down on VR to a point where it's affordable and easy to use, like right now you still need to be quite technically, it's a lot of technical work to get one. So to go from the box to using it, you've got to plug all cables in, you've got to install lots of software and drivers, you've got to find the right games. It's quite an involved process. And I think Oculus have made the first step in that direction with the Quest 2, making it a very easy to use system. Oculus are the OGs of the VR space. They were the first Kickstarter to go, for those who don't know. So they were the pioneers, and they still seem to be pushing the boundary on that. But we've seen also HTC pivot into an enterprise market for the same reason. They're trying to make it very easy for the enterprise to use VR for training, for collaborative workspaces during COVID. So, HTC has released a new headset that's supposed to be very easy to use.
Even the military.
Like I mentioned. So Microsoft with their HoloLens headset, which is more AR than VR.
Yeah.
But it's still these augmented realities or, on top of the world solutions. Yeah, they've won some big contracts with the US Army. They're currently working on integrating their HoloLens system into a military helmet to use on the battlefield. So there's a mix of solutions out there for VR. We definitely don't have time to go through them all today, but I think the big takeaway is I suspect it's China that will come out with the lower to entry barrier headsets just because of market scale, right? Economies of scale. They've got such a big domestic market to test against. We've seen Samsung attempted with their Galaxy Gear line, Gear VR, where they had headsets that any Samsung phone walked in. But it seems it didn't really get wide market adoption because it was difficult to use, and even the passive headset wasn't cheap. So then we just saw that sort of, and I think Samsung might have gone back to the drawing board. We don't know. We'll have to see. Samsung
There's a problem with the interaction with the interface and also making it an enjoyable experience.
Exactly. And the big thing with VR too is you have to have very good technology backing it, because if the VR is, what they call laggy or jerky, so you feel jittery, it gives you motion sickness and makes you sick. And the last thing you want to do is selling a product.
Research to back that.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you want to do is sell a product that makes people throw up, right? Like you don't want people getting sick playing games.
No.
So VR has a while to go, I think. I don't think we will see any major strides this year in the VR space. I think especially a lot of the growth right now and a lot of the focus I'm seeing from the people I talk to is around online multiplayer gaming. So a lot of companies are pushing harder to try and get more people into their ecosystems, playing their games every night, spending a bit of money, and they're the high growth companies as a result.
That's very interesting, because I think for the viewers that are watching who are non-gamers, how can we? Is it promising for them to invest in this gaming space as well?
So I again, not an investment advisor, but I think definitely, because the video gaming industry is bigger than the film, TV, and movie industry combined in terms of revenue, and in terms of people size. Like game development houses, AAA developers, which Microsoft support, one of the biggest, are huge. They have thousands of employees spanning tens of cities across the globe, pumping out huge games. Rockstar Games. Grand Theft Auto is still the highest grossing selling game in the world. Like Grand Theft Auto is a great testament to the casual, because that wasn't normal gamers buying it. Yes, they bought it, but Grand Theft Auto was like the cause of people taking sick days to play it when it came out on launch. Like it's a very popular game.
Still ongoing.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Grand Theft Auto Online,
2015.
they're pivoting into Grand Theft Auto Online, where they're constantly adding new content, constantly upgrading.
Yeah.
That's caused that game to maintain relevancy to the point that they're actually rebuilding the game for new consoles, so people can keep playing it on new consoles. So
I see a pattern here, because for myself, it kind of looks like the metaverse is trying to achieve this. We're trying to have a different world where everyone interacts in like a WoW, World of Warcraft, or GTA environment, minus the gaming side, of course. Yeah, for sure. And I think the metaverse is less about gaming and more about just these spaces where people can meet online and hang out with their friends. Whereas a lot transactions,
of course, or
buy
have a
plots
business
of
meeting.
land.
Yeah, exactly. and people are trying to build economies around it, especially companies like Meta, because they want to make a lot of money off it, right?
Yes.
But in terms of where do I think growth will be in 2021, it'll be in the video gaming space in general. Yeah. Any of those game companies are likely to release new games this year and grow. There's a lot of startups in the industry. You've got even here in Singapore, you've got a local company called Garena with their Free Fire game, which some analysts are saying was the most downloaded mobile game of 2021. So it's a very popular game. It's taking massive market in Southeast Asia, in South America, in Latin America, now they're pivoting into North America, pushing into Europe. It's a very popular game. It's an online multiplayer game. So they're another, I think they're part of the C group, which is listed, I believe. So
it's huge.
Yeah, and the C group, of course, is actually Garena. So Garena was the first product of the company, and then they used their expertise in online worlds to then go out and start building things like Shopee, which is their version of Lazada or Alibaba, I believe. And then grow out as a group. And they're very large now. And a lot of that initial revenue was all on the back of video games. So
Interesting. Wow. I love that you made that connection. So, okay, a little bit of background. So we met at Twitch events and we were both gamers. And what I thought was interesting in 2021 and then transitioning into 2022 is that a lot of our mutual friends, they started to go into the OpenSea space, so the NFT marketplace, and started to get into crypto. I mean, just going beyond that as a starter point, should we be skeptical about this space? Because there's so much going on there.
There is, and there's no clear definition of what they are. I think NFTs, crypto, OpenSea, they're part of this Web3 terminology I'm hearing a lot.
Yes. What is Web3? Is that a spin-off?
No one really knows. Web3, I think the general consensus right now is Web3 is supposed to take. So some back history quickly. Web1 was the very first version of the internet. That was our websites like Alta Vista and the first Dominoes.com websites and those. Web2 was the rise of Facebook, MySpace, if you remember that, even Google, some of their platforms. So Web 2 was adding richness to the internet. You had real-time platforms like Facebook where you could now chat with your friends. You could post a comment and you would instantly see it pop up. You would send an email in Gmail and not have to reload a whole client. And you could do all this from one application, a browser. You just had to know the URL. And the big driving point of Web 2 was Google with their amazing search engine, allowing you to discover this whole online universe of websites and platforms to interact with people and discover things and learn things. Now, Web3 is supposed to take the richness that we got out of Web2 and decentralize it. But
let's talk about that. Okay.
I think very simply, there's a few, I think, stumbling blocks in Web3 that people haven't addressed. The first one is that no one wants to run a server anymore. No one wants to run, even nerds don't want to run servers now. You see there's 2 or 3 companies that have made off like bandits, which are Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, running servers because no one else wants to run servers. They will happily pay someone else to run the server.
They think that they want to run their own, but in actuality, it's not the case.
Correct. And we're still seeing like OpenSea and a lot of these guys are all running off 2 or 3 major API platforms in the back end. So nothing, I think, has majorly changed about this space yet. It's just, if anything, a new bunch of centralized platforms are emerging, but they're sort of masquerading as a decentralized platform because the underlying database is decentralized, but there's only 1 or 2 ways to interact with that database through these companies anyway. So yes, you can download a full Bitcoin node, but that would take you 2 to 3 days and use a lot of bandwidth just to access the database. And then you've got to search through transactions to find it.
I won't be happy with that.
Which you definitely can't do on something like a phone. Phones especially are a on-off system. They can't be constantly receiving transaction data and saving it on their SD card. Okay.
Well, in the finance world, right, we've got the 2 camps of people, right? We've got the traditional people who just want to stick to the traditional methods of investing, stock market, and then you've got the other camp, so the younger generation. They are more into crypto and all that. So we've got 2 camps. Okay, let's just, for the purpose of simplification, let's have these 2 groups. What do you think, going forward with all these new revelations and upcoming startups, in terms of investing and skepticism, is there anything that we should look out for or zoom into for Sphere?
I think so we mean the NFT sphere, right? Yeah. I think for the crypto NFT sphere, just try and see if there is actually underlying technology that these companies are writing. Yeah. Because in a lot of cases, all they're doing is just making a website that makes a few API calls to another website, which might have actual some blockchain technology. So my only advice to people when they ask me about NFTs is to actually, are they providing value? Do they create something? And the answer a lot of times is no. An NFT is a non-fungible token. So what that is crypto is a blockchain, which means that each minute, second, depending on the block time, which is set by the author of the blockchain, a new block is made and there's a bunch of data in that block. Now, an NFT is a single token or a single line in one of those blocks. But a lot of NFTs, when you actually look at the underlying things, they're just a URL. So if someone takes the website down, the NFT is then worthless. It's not the whole image in the blockchain because
there's a perception that's more secure.
Yeah, there is a perception that's more secure, but again, I'm skeptical of that as well because.
So just be aware, extra careful.
Yeah. So from a technical perspective, right now, a lot of these companies who use an API call, you can't actually verify that what's on the blockchain is what they're telling you, because they're not showing you the blockchain. They're saying we sent an API call to another provider on the hope that they're going to put it on the blockchain in the next 15 minutes. Okay. So it will likely end up there, but we can't guarantee it. So there's a lot of trust going around in this sphere. I can see a lot of money on it, a lot of hype, and I can understand people like new things. Like I'm not trying to knock it too hard. I'm just saying that maybe people need to take a few steps back and look at the underlying technology, and is there actually something there? Because I'm hard pressed to
about perceived value, like anything really. Exactly. I mean, if you look at even the stock market, a lot of it is based on assumptions, based on predictions. Yeah. Speculation is a big one, and emotion as well. So there are parallels between the two.
Oh, 100%. And the stock market is very emotionally driven. You only got to see a bad news report can cause, multi-point drops in any sort of stock or indice. That's just the way, humans are emotional people. That's never going to go away. We're never going to lose that. So, and I think especially crypto is very much the Wild West right now. There's a lot of people getting caught up in, unfortunate scams, and a lot of, it's not very regulated. It's not very controlled. And a lot of people like that, and that's fine.
But that was the point, right? Because the most recent read I had, it's called the Bitcoin Big Bang, and it was actually analyzing this and trying to break down the centralized system, going into decentralized and then distribute it. That's just an ideal. It is
very much an ideal. I don't think much of the Bitcoin infrastructure is very decentralized. You've just got a few big whales who own a lot of the Bitcoin. They operate a lot of the mining farms, and they operate a lot of the nodes. And if anything, a lot of those whales are generally linked to the finance industry. So it hasn't really democratized money, I would say. I think the same finance guys have gotten richer just off Bitcoin instead of anything else. A great example might be Elon Musk. Like, what is his vested interest to tweet about Dogecoin all the time? Does he hold a lot of Dogecoin? Is he trying to push the price up to a point where he can cash out? You wouldn't know. So in that sense, I think, has Bitcoin solved any problems? I'm not sure at the moment. Could it solve problems? Certainly, but I don't know if we're there yet. So I think, a healthy dose of skepticism, be a bit more critical in your thinking when you look at these things. What does this actually provide before you just go and jump on the hype train? Probably been clear. My biggest interest is, again, around multiplayer video gaming. I think that's where a lot of the growth is. People want to play games and have fun. And
even for non-gamers.
Even for non-gamers, I think a lot of non-gamers I thought who were non-gamers a year ago are now gamers. A lot of people...
I think I've made everyone in my life a gamer too.
Well, I didn't even do it intentionally. I just, people are saying, I bought a Switch. I now play this game. I play that game. I have people who never play games in their life, and now they play games because they got a Switch, or their daughter or their cousin or their auntie or their uncle or their brother told them to download an app on their phone. So I think multiplayer video games is still the big growth area, especially, the top 1% of esports is growing. And as that grows, that's going to draw in more people to watch. Maybe take a look. Watching esports can be just as fun as watching a game of football, believe it or not. So.
Okay, very interesting. So thank you for all your insight. Now I've got a few questions from our community. So we actually listened and we read your questions online. And we've got 2 questions for Ben. One is really about the portfolio element. So if I'm new to this space and I don't know anything about it, what are 2 things that I should take in as variables for investing?
So the space being...
in terms of meta.
Okay, so you mean like the online...
Yeah, the online
gaming,
element.
or do you want really like the metaverse? Because
Perhaps I said... really start with metaverse.
The metaverse, like I said, a healthy dose of skepticism again, because I don't think anyone knows what the metaverse is yet. We know what it could be, but we don't know what it is right yet. So I would take long, very... look at the fundamentals of the companies you're looking at in the metaverse, and what do they actually make? What can they show you now that actually works versus what's on the deck that they're promising? If you believe in, maybe if they have a really good track record of executing and you believe in them, again, that's all up to you. Take sound advice from people, but definitely look at what do they actually create? What is the underlying technology they've created, and what do they think that technology can enable?
Okay, so for our next question, they would like to know, you mentioned the dystopian space, the dystopian element of creating a new reality away from AR. Is the Chinese market very promising for investment?
I'm not a big expert on the Chinese market. I'll preface that, but I think definitely in terms of multiplayer gaming, the Chinese market is much bigger. When I was last in Shanghai, I was shocked at how many people on their phones, especially people I didn't expect, to be sitting there playing a game on the train.
Give me an example.
Oh, it was just like, they definitely want your typical gamer. It was like an auntie with her 2 kids, and she was sitting there with playing a game called Honor of Kings on her phone on the Shanghai metro. Like, it was very unexpected. I think, games in China have these crazy numbers of concurrent user bases. They have, crazy amounts of money being poured into the games. Players are very high yield in there, and it's very popular. They have stadiums, they have houses full of esports players training. It's almost a national sport at this point. They've got TV channels dedicated to gaming. So definitely any Tencent is an easy one to ping up. But even
for AR, we saw it with Pokemon Go, right?
Pokemon Go, and Niantic.
The Taiwanese uncle with all the phones.
Yeah, it was Pokemon Go was a great example of just everyone getting out.
Yes.
Power bank companies made off like bandits because everyone needed a power bank all of a sudden because they had a game that needed to run longer than 10 seconds on their phone. So you've got a lot of, but if you want to know who the big guys are in the Chinese gaming market, who probably are pushing into the AR and VR space, you've got like Tencent, you've got Perfect World, they make a lot of games. You've got NetEase Games, Alibaba are making moves into the gaming space as well. And then I believe, Baidu also is big in the gaming space in China too. So they're the places to be watching. Just watch around the Shenzhen market. Like Shenzhen is Silicon Valley times 100. It's, there's so much innovation going on. There's so many people who have ideas and dreams and then they go and try it in Shenzhen. So definitely be watching that area.
I can't wait to visit myself. Okay. Well, Ben, do you have any last thoughts for our viewers out there?
Well, where I sit in the startup space is very unique. We are in a market of, we believe we're in a market of one still. So we take what other companies would do not generally, and we very much specialize it. So, that's sort of what we do, what we see. My biggest advice is just to, have a look at what the companies are actually offering. Don't get caught up in the hype too much. Take a step back and just take a look.
Be critical.
And ask, if you're an older person, ask your son, are you playing this game? Your son or daughter, are you playing this game? What is this game? Because, the other metaverse company we haven't mentioned is Roblox.
Yes.
Took the world by storm last year. Roblox is this huge game. It's
yes, and all the Twitch streamers and all the other streamers on cross platforms, they made so much from that game.
Of course. And Roblox is very popular with the younger generations. It lets them build any world they want. They can build whatever game they want. They can be whatever they want in the game, and they can play with their friends, and it's quite a walled garden, so it's safer, relatively safer for the younger kids as long as mum and dad are still watching. So
how is that different from Fortnite and Minecraft?
Roblox is it's sort of like a Lego online. It's similar to Minecraft but very multiplayer. You can like I said, you can build a game yourself. People have re-emulated whole very famous games inside Roblox to play. So Roblox is a very interesting game, and I think it's another one to definitely keep your eyes on because they're an up and comer, and the revenue figures are crazy, staggering because they just have such a huge player base.
Great stuff, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode, and I look forward to the next time you're here so that I can interview you again.
Certainly. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. My dear listener, which type of startups are you looking at right now? And what's interesting for you in the virtual space? Leave your comment down below because I would love to know your thoughts. And also, like, subscribe, and comment because we have upcoming videos like this, so stay tuned. Once again, thank you for joining me on Playing with Fire. I'm Olivia Higgins, and we'll see you next time. Bye.